In this episode, I'm joined by Lynne Franks OBE. Lynne began her career as a journalist for a fashion and pop culture magazine after leaving school at 16. At 21, she formed her own PR agency, which was soon regarded as the leading fashion PR firm in the UK. Notably, she was also integral in forming London Fashion Week. She now works on Seeds, an organisation which aims to provide women from marginalised backgrounds with opportunities and knowledge in business. What is the ingredients to her success? Find out in this episode. Okay, first of all, Lynne, could I just thank you very, very much for agreeing to do this. When you said yes, I was really looking forward to it because, yours is a name that everybody knows, especially in the PR marketing world. So I'm really looking forward to our chat.
Well, I was delighted to be asked because I'm sure we've met before. But apart from that, I see your sausages in the local Morrisons when I go shopping. And I've seen you talk about what you're doing. So I thought it was definitely going to be an interesting chat between us.
I really appreciate that. That's right. We were saying that at the moment, you're all wrapped up as though you're living in the Arctic. Where in fact are you at the moment?
So I live in Wincanton in South Somerset, just off the 303. I've got two lovely old buildings, 500 years old, and I run a hub where we teach workshops to young teens from Yeovil College in creative industries, and we also teach schoolgirls, and then we have women's gatherings, we have a spoken mic, lots of things go on here for the community, which I love. We've got a little shop, and I'm also online all the time, as we all are these days, and I coach and teach worldwide women from all sorts of countries and areas, and broadcast worldwide. So it's kind of a nice place to be. But it is not the warmest in these wonderful old houses. That's the only thing I will say. So the central heating is up full blast.
Fantastic. When one thinks of the Lynne Franks of old being in Somerset, having these sort of workshops and hubs, what made you decide to do that?
Well, it was definitely not a plan, and I never thought I'd end up in Somerset. I've lived all around the world. I've lived in Los Angeles, had offices in San Francisco when the whole internet boom was starting. I've had a home in Mallorca for many years. There was no plan at all, and somehow I floated to Somerset. I do say to friends and people I've just met even that I came here on my broomstick, because there's a lot of women here who are kind of wise women, or even one could say in their witchy energy. And I certainly feel that I'm in my witchy energy. So it's a very powerful place to be. And I do love it here a lot. You know, I'm near Glastonbury, I'm near Stonehenge. I think the land is magical. And it's a good place to be right now. So for the last 25 years, you know of me through PR, but actually I sold the business in the late 80s. And then I went to Los Angeles and started a new PR company. But I've been working with women. I brought a book out 22 years ago called The Seed Handbook, which was the first book teaching women how to start small businesses. Seed is an acronym for Sustainable Enterprise and Empowerment Dynamics. So that became it came out all over the world. It's still coming out all over the world, 22 years later. And it also became the core of a content learning program to give women self-confidence, empower them, start their own businesses. And now, as I say, I use it and other people do to coach and guide young people. I've worked with local schoolgirls, I work with college students, and I work with women even up to my old age. And, you know, it just goes all the way across, and I love it. So I feel that PR was my life for 20 odd years, which is how a lot of people know of me. But the last 20 odd years have been really what my life purpose is all about, which is really women's empowerment, actually, worldwide.
The theme of this podcast is success is not normal. And one of the things I'm interested to hear from you, because you're obviously doing a lot of work in this area, is what is it do you teach women especially that they need to be able to do in order to actually fulfill their dream of setting up their own business or being entrepreneurial?
Well, the first thing is the confidence level. It is an absolute fact that women worldwide suffer from lack of self-confidence. Many communities, not every woman, not every man has got confidence, not every woman has a lack of confidence, but on the whole, women do tend to not, or when they're on their own, not really have that self-belief that takes them to the next stage. So we always start with that and give them permission to share their stories. Because the other thing that's different usually, but again, can't really generalize, but is usually different between men and women, is that women really love to share. They love to be in small groups. They love to listen to other women's stories, tell their own stories, where men are just naturally more cautious and quite often, I don't know about you, Wilfred, but a lot of men's best friends are women, whether it's their wives or their sisters or women in their lives, and because they find it easier to talk to women. Women just are more open, and they need that. So in this world of isolation, I think one of the biggest things that I provide, and I think for a lot of women in other countries also have, is that sort of community, that network of women coming together and sharing their stories and supporting each other. I've been working on a project which involves 7 women. I call it the Power of 7. And I talk about them being in pods, like seed pods, because my whole work is all around seeds, metaphor of seeds and planting gardens. And it's about having this group of 7 who can either do a business together, support each other, become community leaders. And it's all about collaboration. And I think going forward, in a very challenging world for everybody, men, women, children, teenagers, everybody, the collaborative communication, cooperation that we need is going to be very, very, very important. You know, COVID really knocked so many people, not just health-wise, not just financially, and, you know, not even just from an isolation point of view, but really has knocked people's mental health in so many ways. And we really need to create opportunities for people to get together and share. So it starts, I think, for women with groups of other women, and then we can spread out and talk with men as well, like we're doing, which is great. To be with peers, you know, with men and women to sit and talk about what's going on in their lives is really, really important as well. But women have to start with themselves.
What I wanted to do, Lynne, is to go right back to the start of your career, because one of the things I'm fascinated with is to find out what is it that makes someone successful? What is the sort of driver? And so one of the things I find quite interesting, so if you go back to the beginning, because was it your father was a butcher, if I'm right?
Yeah, but I also, probably like you, come from a family of immigrants, and I think that that's also part of it. I'm second generation, third generation, depending which side, of Jewish Eastern European immigrants. And I think that whole immigrant culture is very much about, well, not just about survival, but about achievement somehow. So I started working in my dad's butcher shop when I was about 12 or 13 on a Saturday and after school. And it was always very clear. I was always very ambitious. Having said that, my sister stopped work as soon as she could, actually, and had 3 children and became a mum. So I guess it's not everybody that gets that way. But I think and also my generation, you know, of people like Richard Branson and all the rest, we all left school at 16 and became entrepreneurs. It was open for that kind of thing. I guess probably from I don't know how old you are, but it's, you know, that kind of baby boomer generation. It was like post-war. It was sort of like very easy in a way, much easier than it is now to start your own business.
What I'm interested in is this. So why did you, for example, so I have a family, I've got 8 brothers and sisters.
Right.
And I'm the only one that went down the entrepreneurial route. I'm 65. And what I'm interested in is, well, why did you go down the entrepreneurial route?
Well, my sister went to live in Canada, got married, went to live in Canada very young. And I don't know if that got anything to do with it. It's interesting. I don't know. It's obviously in the genes. I definitely came from quite a few, on both sides of the family, quite a few generations of entrepreneurs. And, you know, they'd come over to England from wherever they came from and they'd set up a business. That's how they made a living and look after their family. That's the way it was. So my grandmother started a hat shop when she was 18 years old in King's Cross, making hats for showgirls. And then she had a hotel. My mother always worked in the business. My dad wasn't that well, so it was always, my grandfather wasn't that well, so it was always the women that took that role of earning the money to look after the family. So I was the oldest child, so I don't know why one in a family makes that particular choice and others don't. I don't know.
Yeah, so that's what I'm interested in, is that is it genetic, or is it, everything about you to bring about change? You're not happy with the status quo. So that's what I'm trying to understand.
Okay,
really.
well, in terms of the question you just asked me, which was, was I an outsider? I wasn't an outsider, but I hated school. So maybe I was in a way. I was a leader. So at school, I always had the leadership role. I was always voted form captain by the kids at school. I would always organise sort of social activities. But any excuse I could to get out of lessons, or, I was always getting in trouble with headmistress for the way I dressed. So it was two ways. I wasn't an outsider with the kids. I was the leader of the kids, and I always loved to do public speaking and all the things that I love to do now, reading and writing. But in terms of the structure and the system, the educational system, I was absolutely an outsider. I hated it, absolutely hated it. So it didn't work for me, and I think, maybe that's why, I don't know how old you were when you left school, but it never would even occur to me to go to university. I wanted to be a journalist. I was absolutely ready to, and I did start off as a journalist and went into PR by default, and then found out that was really better for me. Yeah,
well, you see, the same as me. I was a rebel at school. I left school at 16 without any qualifications, and that I was sort of dyslexic. So would you say that you were a rebel then?
Yeah, definitely. I was definitely a rebel.
Okay.
I was always getting in trouble, always. And I was always the first to tell the kids, this is the latest music, this is the latest club, these are the fashion trends. I mean, I went to a school reunion, it's a while ago now, but when I was there was a guy called Martin Rushent, who sadly passed away, who was a very top record producer. And he said it was because I used to come to school every week with the NME, and I'd talk to him about music, and that's what got him interested in being a record producer. It was always being, I think some of us are too bright for traditional schools education. And, working with the educational system now to a degree, I can see, especially with these kids that have just been through COVID and have been locked up for so long, I think we need a whole different kind of educational system, which is not based on judging people on the exams, but and pushing the kids and pressuring them the way they are now. But bringing out their life skills and teaching them life skills, because it's going to be a very different world that the teenagers and the even younger of today are going to grow up in than we grew up in. We're very lucky. I mean, I give thanks every day for my life, really, that I lived the 60s, the 70s, the 80s and so on.
So the question then is, can you teach entrepreneurialism, or does one of the vital things that people need to come to terms with is to connect with their authentic self? Because you were a rebel, you're able to sort of connect with your authentic self. And I'm just quite interested because it's an area you're doing quite a lot of work in helping people to start their own businesses. But if they can't connect with that, it will fail.
It's not everybody I teach about starting their own business. That's where it started from. But actually, it's moved much more to leadership. And leadership can be in very different forms. I mean, it can be becoming a leader in community, it can be a leader in business, or it can be just taking a lead, I wouldn't say the word is even leadership, but that is what I call it. More of a role in your own life where you are not just accepting things because that's what the expectations are. It's about doing things that you love. It may be becoming an artist. It may be that you've been in the corporate world for years, but actually your heart is in nature. Your heart is in making beautiful art pieces. So it's actually, and the teenagers that a new group I start working with tomorrow, in fact, I'm not going to be teaching them how to start a business. I'm going to be teaching them how to follow their passions and see both with realistic vision as well as the dream vision, how they can make that work in today's world and in tomorrow's world. Which the college is thrilled that I'm going to be working with them on this, because I can give them the reality feedback about, I want to be a fashion illustrator, or I want to be a textile designer. Do you? How much do you know of those industries? Let's look at them. What's available? What's accessible? Where are you personally wanting to take your talent? But also, what's your dream? What's the vision that will give you joy? And with women, at all ages, because I do really work with people from 17 to 70. And it's predominantly women. It's like, okay, let's start with creating the vision of your whole life. Where do you want to live? How do you want to live? Who do you want to live with? How does your the passions of what you want to do work into that, you know. And at 17, you don't know where you want to live and where you want all the details of your life. But at least let's start getting the experience under your belt that's going to take you on this journey. I mean, I think it's wonderful that so many young people, my granddaughter included, do a bit of travelling and and all my friends' daughters of 17, 18, they take that opportunity to, before they go to university, to find out who they are by travelling or whatever they do. And I'm not sure, again, that the university system, it depends university to university, but they can get caught up in a system that is really not letting them grow. So I can't remember what your original question was, but anyway, yeah, but it's not about starting a business. It's about living a life of joy and purpose.
And then, so for me, then I'm trying to work out then, so is that, because you talk about leadership, people taking control of their own lives in terms of following their passion. So do you think that that's different to being entrepreneurial? So there's leading your own life and being entrepreneurial. I think
an entrepreneur is someone who's, I wouldn't even use the word control, but has definitely trusted their own instincts and intuition to follow a certain path that they enjoy. Hopefully that's what they do. But so you need to have those skills there, and you need to have that confidence. Although I do think it's going to get tougher and tougher for young people to be entrepreneurs. But in terms of being a leader or going with your natural flow, you don't have, that doesn't necessarily end up in entrepreneurship. Or what we're talking about now, which is for women, is solopreneur. That's what they're being called now, as you probably have heard. That doesn't mean they want to start a business employing lots of people, but they want to do something that gives them joy, which might be anything from a yoga teacher to an artist to a writer. I mean, but they still consider themselves with that kind of entrepreneurial vision, I guess, because everybody has to make a living. So it's like, how can you bring in the income you need and create the purpose and the joy that you want?
Yeah, I think, and be interested to see what your view is that the educational system in the West takes out people's ability to trust their gut, to trust their instinct. Because I work on the basis that if I followed rational logic and reason in my life, I would not actually have achieved the things that I've done. Because I didn't have the formal education, all I had to rely on was my gut and my instinct. And I think we live in a society where actually that's been removed. What is your view?
I agree with you completely and entirely. I remember I had an accountant friend, or somebody I used to work with, on a Saturday. I was always doing typing to earn extra money. And this accountant said to me, do not start your own business. Go and get a job. That's the last thing you should be doing. And fortunately, I didn't listen to him. And, I was 21 when I started, and I've never regretted it or looked back since. But I think that... I didn't fit in the system, and I didn't want to fit in the system. And I don't think the educational system today, or any time in the last, since the Second World War, or any time before that, really encourages people the way it should to have, as I talked about earlier, the confidence and the space to grow and trust their own intuition. It's very, very important.
I think it's very, very important. And in the age that we live in, where everything is decided on evidence, data, research, logic, I think it really gets in the way of people trusting their gut.
I agree.
What we need to, in a sense, do is train people to connect with their gut, rather than try and make decisions based on what appears to be logic. In terms of, to do what you're doing, you need to be driven and to be passionate about it. Where does that come from? Because it takes a lot of energy.
I don't know. I ask myself that quite often, especially now getting older. And I'm like, why am I still so busy? I'm busy from the minute I wake up in the morning to the minute I collapse in front of the TV in the evening. And I love the creativity. I love the creative process. I love people. I love... different situations. I mean, I'm always being told by my team here, as well as the advisors, as well as everybody I know, to do less in terms of spreading myself too thin. I'm an ideas person. That's why PR suited me so well. I've got so many ideas. I'm constantly sprinkling those seeds, sowing those seeds into the ground. And really, I should be much better off just focusing. But that's what I enjoy. I enjoy all the new ideas, the new conversations. I love being aware of what's going on in the world. I mean, I'm working right now on some projects which include a women's token, like a digital coin, and how we can set up new kinds of online platforms. I'm as interested in the future as I've ever been. And generally, I don't look back. I mean, I'm not saying I don't acknowledge where I've made mistakes and where I've learned from, but actually, I'm always looking forward. And I suspect until literally my brain or my body or both disintegrate around me, I'll still be doing that. I still like the new ideas. I still like the creative process. I still like working with different people and having that, you know, backwards and forwards energy that is so enjoyable.
And do you think then one knows when they've found their authentic self, because then that allows you to bring out the creativity that we all have within us, do you think?
Yes, I do. I mean, the words that you're talking about, the Seed Handbook, which I've got behind me on the shelf, I mean, in it, which at the time when it came out 22 years ago, no one knew what I was talking about. And I then called it the feminine way to do business. And I talk about your authentic self. I talk about your intuition. I talk about that sort of freedom of choice. And now these are things that are coming from you that are very much more taken seriously, probably less in the corporate world, because the corporate world still likes to sort of control. And I think that does reflect in academia and education, whereas we really need to let people be freed up to be their authentic self, and they will achieve more. If they want to work from home, they want to work as a group. We need people to be authentic to themselves. Otherwise, people get sick, and that's not healthy, obviously.
So that's quite interesting, really. So really, it's all about getting people to trust their authentic self, rather than what the educational system does is condition them to think in one particular way.
Yeah.
And I think what's quite interesting about the new world that we live in, where computers or algorithms could do the things that people needed to have an education to do some 20, 30 years ago, there's going to be a massive gap for human beings, where we're going from the informational age to the sort of conceptual age, about thinking, creative things that are very, very different. And
yeah,
I'm just
absolutely spot on. I mean, what do you do, just out of interest, for your creative self? That's because you're running a very successful business. You've got a farm. And you're doing these podcasts. What do you do for your own?
I think that one of the things I'm grateful that I've never done is that I've never got outside investment, because the moment you get other people's money, what they want is a return. And so for me, creativity is constantly learning. And you only learn if you're prepared to make mistakes. Yeah. And that you give yourself the opportunity to sort of experiment and to sort of develop. That has been my saving grace, is that actually I'm always trying different things, and it's the journey rather than the outcome that really excites me, because I'm not doing this for money. In fact, selling sausages allows me to be creative. That's the irony.
Yeah. I need to find the sausages that I need to sell to give me the freedom. I'm looking for them all the time. And metaphorical sausages.
And so what happens then, you see, for me, because I run something called the Hatchery, because like you, people come to me with ideas, food ideas, and if it's a good idea, I will then sort of help develop that idea and then take it to the retailers. So I've got some really good successes at the moment. There's a brand out there called Smorgasbord. That's one of my brands. Another brand called Jim Kitchen. That's my brand. Another brand called I'm Halal. And what I'm always looking for when I'm talking to these entrepreneurs is what is their authentic truth. Everybody has, it's what you were saying earlier on. Everyone has a story that is personal to them, and that is what you sell.
Yeah.
And it's trying to get people to understand, don't go out there and copy somebody else. It's just really try and figure out what is your own personal story, because that is the essence of actually being successful.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love all the branding you do, whether it's your business or these other, because as we know, as you said earlier, you're former PR and I'm former PR, it's all about the branding, and it's the branding that people will connect with and will trust. So especially on the supermarket shelves.
I think you were saying something earlier on, Lynne, about it's about people's stories. People buy stories. They don't buy products. They buy stories.
Yeah.
And so we're sort of storytellers, and that's what and so the more corporate that people become, the less they are connected to the stories that created them in the first place.
And the less they're connected to the customer they're trying to sell to, which is also
Exactly.
pretty important. And what we've seen, we're both in the business world, is that what we need is trust from the consumer and connection from the consumer. And you're absolutely spot on. It's about the stories. I think that's a great idea. I love what you're doing. I think we should have a meeting and see what we can do together, personally.
Well,
me get my story right.
Well, I tell you, you've got to take this into consideration. The reason why I'm having a conversation with you is because of your name. So your name has a lot of power. You know, that in itself is a brand that actually means something. And I think it's really interesting that that brand is now helping women in terms of developing, but in terms of how that could then be put into a tangible product, that then is the next move. That's when you start to make money.
I want to have a meeting with you, Wilfred. Next time you're on the 303 or you're going back to Devon, I want you to stop off and, or I'll come down and see you, and I want to have a meeting with you and see what we can create. Because my whole thing is about seeds and planting seeds, and that's what I'm really, getting organic seeds out there and getting people to plant their own vegetables, and they're going to have to. I mean, it's like, but I've still got too much. I've got too much noise, and I need your incisive brain to say, that's the key. That's the key thing. That's the core. Well,
let me just give you a tip here as a suggestion. Everybody knows the 303, okay? And for example, I remember having a chat to a pig farmer who farms, and you're going down the 303 and you're always seeing his pigs.
Well, opposite Stonehenge. Is it opposite Stonehenge?
Yeah. And I said to him, why don't you create a brand called Stonehenge Pigs or Stonehenge Pork?
Yeah.
And because everybody will know it, and there's an authentic truth about it. But there are some people with a mindset, he's really, he has a deal with Waitrose and he wants to go down that route. One of the things I would say to you is that to do something, the 303 is the thing that's magical. There is something magical about anything off the 303. And that's what I'd be calling it, the 303 whatever. Because A, that's where you live. B, there is an authentic truth. There's a magic about the 303. And that's what I would be doing.
I don't know. For a lot of people, the 303 represents traffic jams, so I'd be careful about that one. I don't even know.
I wouldn't worry about that.
I'm not sure I'm going to be staying on the 303 forever, so I would be careful on that one. But I hear what you're saying. I think the pig guy should have taken it. I don't think it's right for me. But I know that you would find what is right for me. I have no doubt whatsoever.
We could plug away at this, because so how old are you, if you don't mind me asking then? How old are you
I'm
now?
74.
So there you are, you're 74, and you still got the creativity and the energy of a 20-year-old, and where does that come from? Because as you said...
I don't know. I mean, I'm healthy, I'm well, I'm up, and I spring out of bed in the morning thinking, what exciting things have I got on today? And I don't know where that comes from. I guess it comes from my parents. My dad was a bit like that, but he had mental issues. So he was bipolar. So he would have his springing up and springing down days. And my mum was just hardworking. But I can see from both of them, my grandparents, where the different genetic side of it came from. But I just don't know. But I love life, and I'm grateful for life. And I'm still so excited by everything that can be done every day. I mean, today I've been already coaching somebody online. I've been writing a breakdown for some online coaching, collective coaching I'm going to do. I've got somebody coming to see me about a documentary at lunchtime. I've got an event here in my hub tonight, which is all about spoken word. So, and I'm working with the States as well on some broadcast ideas. So I don't know. It's just that I love all these things. That's why I don't get focused. That's why I don't have my 303, because I'm too...
So what we need to do is actually focus the idea. Do you have children?
Yeah, I've got 2 kids, and I've got 7 grandchildren. I've got a daughter who runs health food stores in Oxford, and I've got a son who's a comedian and is now on GB News as a presenter and a producer. I'm doing really well, and he's got 5 little kids, and they're all good, so I don't have to worry about them.
What's quite interesting, so they've actually gone on the sort of creative, in a sense, entrepreneur route. They haven't gone
completely. Yeah. I mean, it took them a while, but they were influenced. They grew up in my world. I sort of dragged them around as much to their dismay at times to fashion shows and all the things I was doing, but they actually had an awful lot of impact on who they are as people. And I think they both realise they're now in their mid-40s, so they kind of get that. You know, they were travelling all around the world. They met extraordinary people as they were growing up that were my friends.
Is there something that you still feel that you need to do in order to have achieved your personal purpose?
Interesting idea, that is. Yeah. Well, of course, the big picture is I'd like to change the world and becoming a safe place for my grandchildren and their grandchildren to grow up in. That's my biggest thing. I'd like to feel by the end of my life, I really have done something with others that is going to create a better, safe place for our children, our grandchildren to live. That's my number one, absolutely, without question.
And so when you...
Whatever that looks like.
So this is really important, and this will help you focus, because the key thing in life is that you've got to know what your personal purpose is to know what direction that you're going into. And so is there any organization that you admire to say, actually, that is the sort of thing that I would like to achieve?
No, there isn't. And that's what I want to do with Seed, because I have a network of women, and Seed is a brand. And that's what I want to do. And I want these women to be empowered to help each other and mentor each other and grow the Seed network in a way that could actually really make a difference. So that's what I'm about to launch, which are these pods, which will, I hope, be starting everywhere, where the women will take leadership roles, as I spoke about it, in community. And I'd love to see that grow. I have this vision of these groups of 7 joining up together, sharing their stories, and giving each other the confidence and the inspiration to make things change in their own communities and let that be bigger and bigger. I call it me, we, us. And so I would love to see that really in place, making a difference and giving a lot of people a lot of joy.
So let me just analyse that then. So it's a support network then you're talking about,
it's a support network.
Okay, so...
With tools.
Okay,
tools.
so for example... One of the great support networks that has started off like you did with something like Alcohol Anonymous, for example.
Yeah,
that is a support network where people with particular issues could go and actually get inspiration and support for others. So that is what you'd like.
Or
to see.
You could say Weight Watchers, for example.
Or Weight Watchers.
Yeah.
But
so I would like to spread out the same thing. But it's where women help other women and support them into starting their own businesses or whatever that means, or creating community gardens in their town, or being able to feel they can achieve anything, but do it together. So you
okay, but
you can help me do
Lynne,
that. I know you could. Yeah.
But Lynne, this is one of the things. So Weight Watchers was a very specific cause, i.e. to help people lose their weight. Alcoholics Anonymous was to help people deal with drinks. So because at the moment, your Seed idea, there's lots of things.
That's the trouble.
What is that one single purpose? That's what it needs to do. So
the single purpose in the simplest way is empowering women. But then how do you empower women, and what do they, once they're empowered, what do they end up doing?
And what does empowering mean?
What does empowering women mean? It means that it goes back to all those things we talked about, really. Living a life of their own values, having the self-confidence to create something which is their dream and their passions, and also being financially empowered, because in the world to come, that's going to be incredibly important. So it goes back to starting a small business or becoming a solopreneur. I'm actually on Women's Hour on Tuesday, or it's going out early next year, talking about the same thing. It's really, what women can do together to support each other, to create something in their global community, their local community, in their families, that will be a positive change for the future. And that is too vague. I know it's too vague. Even as someone who is a good writer like I am and who works with other people very well as a coach, getting them to that point, it's too much and it's too vague. And so that's what's missing. I know.
So one of the
too
final
many ideas.
Yeah. One of my final questions really for you is this. Do you think that success is not normal?
It's all about the definition of success. What does success really mean? Success for a lot of people is not about a big house, big car, loads of money in the bank. Success is actually having a life of joy. Their family are all healthy and well. I mean, what does success mean to you? I mean, so that's what success means to me, is to be joyful friends, a healthy family, a life that I'm every day having tremendous enjoyment from, and enough money in the bank to pay my utility bills. That's really what success means to me.
Success for me means that to have the courage to go for what you want, knowing that actually you may have to do that on your own, and also how to embrace uncertainty. Most people think that they are living, they think that there is such a thing as certainty. Certainty does not exist. It's how you embrace uncertainty, because you can't actually live a successful life unless you're able to embrace it. You have the whole of your life is that you trust your gut.
I take risks all the time.
Yeah. So you learnt that ever since you were a kid. You think about it, from that rebellious kid in the classroom to everything in your career. You've always been true to that sort of authentic truth. So is it teaching women? Is it teaching people to get to that stage where they could trust that side of them, to say no, not to go along, not to...
That's what I do. I have huge amounts of content work that I've done over the years with thousands and thousands of women, literally from South Africa to women's prisons to post-war zones. And I've taken all this work out there, and I still am. I'm working in Kazakhstan right now. So, I take this work out there and I see what reacts and the programs I've done, or the trainings I've done, really, really work. So what I need to do is package them. That's really what I am. I'm an educational business as well as a network. So how do you package that? And yes, I've got the name, and yes, I'm on Woman's Hour, and I'm in the Daily Mail, and I'm talking to you. So, I've got the brand out there. So, how do I take it to the next stage? Of, I don't want to be selling in Waitrose, obviously, but I actually developed, I haven't got it in this room, a seed pack where people buy organic seeds, and they also have a QR code that takes them through to a workshop with me. So that's launching next year.
That's a really good idea. So why do you, because, I would imagine that one of your frustrations are that the reason why people want to talk to you is because of your PR history, which is some 20, 25 years ago. But actually, the work that you're doing now is the sort of stuff that you want to do.
It is a frustration, especially with the whole ad fab thing, because obviously, and thank you for not bringing that up, but that's what comes up all the time. So the Daily Mail did a huge article on me last week, but it starts off with Adina, Safi, blah, blah, blah. So it's up to me to use that. If that's what people come to me for, then it's up to them coming in with the stuff I really want to talk about. And it is frustrating, but on the other hand, the whole ad fab PR thing has opened loads of doors that perhaps I wouldn't have had otherwise, that gives me the opportunity. A lot of people I work with, they don't know anything about ad fab. These kids I'm working with now, I never even watched it, never heard of it. So it's like, thank God. But if it's useful, then use it to bring in what I do want to talk about, which is the stuff you're talking about. You don't want to sit here talking about sausages, but what you want to talk about is authentic self and storytelling and gifts and intuition, listening to yourself. And so it's like we use what we have. I'm sure we were on a TV show together years and years ago when we were talking about being the black farmer. You've used that brilliantly. It is unusual. It is your unique selling point, but actually it's able to let you do all the things you want to do.
Exactly, yeah. So I don't want to talk about the black farmer. I just want that to let me to talk about the sort of things we're talking about.
Well. Yeah.
So
for me, it's about planting seeds. So I'd love to show you my seed box. I'd love to talk to you about it.
I think that's a really good idea. But it is about, people also need to have the opportunity to continuously reinvent themselves.
Yeah.
And you've done a really good job at that. Do you know what I mean? So there's some people hang on to what they were 20, 25 years ago, which is sort of no longer relevant.
Yeah. Sometimes I think that I move on too fast, and I also go too early into certain things. I've been working with Steve for 22 years. And when I launched the Seed Handbook, I was on Woman's Hour, and Jenny Murray said to me, "What do you mean the feminine way to do business?" 22 years later, they're having me on to talk about the feminine, or not talk. They don't call it the feminine way to do business now. It's just the fact that so many women are working from their kitchen table, starting small businesses, which they are following. They're following their heart and their dreams. So but I definitely don't believe in staying still and hanging on. I'd be a lot richer if I did. I'd be running the biggest PR company in the world. But it's like time for change. It's time to do something different.
Think, actually, I'm just quite interested in it. Do you think that there is women running their own business are different to men? Is there a different mindset?
Yes, I think there is. I think that just even the way we're talking to each other, I think women tend to be less logical, which is not always a good thing. I think we tend to follow our dreams without looking at the actual detail of, how the business is going to run. I know that sometimes that works and sometimes one needs to be a bit more cautious. And I always say to women that I'm working with, never put your house up. Always make sure you keep your roof over your head. So I think that I think the ideal thing is men and women's gifts together, because I think, women will do all those things we've talked about, the intuition, the storytelling, the connection, and all the rest of it, but they don't always look at the linear side of things. Men generally look much better at the linear side of things. Well, what's the profit involved here? How many do you have to make before you make even, break even and all that, which women just like, oh, well, never mind about that. Well, I just want to do this thing in a bright yellow. Whereas men will be, yeah, but if you're going to do that bright yellow, you've got to print 1,000 of those and you've got to sell 10,000 to even make a penny. So I get the difference between men and women, and I am much more on the feminine side. Or when I'm talking to other people, as I say, and coaching other people, I can be very kind of left and right brain. But when I'm looking at myself, I'm the same right brain. So what do you think the difference is?
Well, I think, I would say about right brain or left brain. I'm a classic right brainer, and it's the right brainers who change the world. It's the dreamers who change the world, not the people who are logical and rational.
No.
And that it's good to have them within a business, but I don't think they should.
You need your accountant, but you don't want to be the accountant.
Yeah. And I think that the people we should trust are the dreamers. They're the ones who have a vision and see the world as it will be. And I think one of the challenges we have, especially in today's society, is that rational logic has sort of dominated. And in terms of entrepreneurialism, innovation, creativity, you have to let the right brainers loose. You've got to give them the opportunity to experiment, to do things. And I would like to see the country really sort of expand that. Because if you look at some of these countries like the USA, in the 50s and 60s, when people went there with new ideas that they want to change the world, is that sort of energy makes the environment a really exciting place to be. Go to India, for example, where people are trying and doing new things. That's vibrant and interesting. We in the West have lost that because we've relied on sort of logic and rationality as everything that we do.
I completely agree with you. There's a wonderful film, I don't know if you've ever seen it, with George, what's his name? He's married to the barrister. Oh, God. Anyway, it's called Tomorrowland. It's a Disney film, and it's supposed to be for children, and it's all about, I can't think of it. You know who I mean, the American actor who's married to that wonderful human rights barrister.
George Clooney.
George
Clooney?
Yeah, that's when I tell I'm 74.
Yeah.
George Clooney stars in this film. I've watched it so many times, and it's all about the dreamers and how to find the dreamers and the poets in society. I mean, it's Hugh Laurie's in it. He plays the baddie. I mean, it's a traditional film, but it's actually so much more than that. And it's exactly says the same thing. If we don't keep the dreamers in society, and it's like, you were up talking. You're quite involved with politics and Westminster, because when I was supposed to speak the other day, you were up there having a meeting or something. So I gave up on them a long time ago because the whole system's and structure for it has got to change drastically. But if you look at that, where's the dreaming with the people that are supposed to be leading us? They can't even get through the day. It's like we need the dreamers, and the perfect world. And you're absolutely right. It's not male, female. It's the right and left brain. The perfect world is to have leaders who represent both. So, or you have them in the business, as you say. You have people that make sure that the thing keeps running, but you also have to have the dreamers. I'm with you 100%, and that's I guess what we are. Who we are.
It is. I think that's a really good way of ending this postcode. It's that to celebrate the dreamers, because it's the dreamers who change the world, really. And
I love that.
Nice
I love that.
You've done a lot to change the world, and you're still changing that world.
And I still hopefully am. Okay. Well, it's been really fantastic to speak.
You have been listening to myself, Wilfred Emmanuel Jones, or better known as the Black Farmer. This was the Success is Not Normal podcast. Stay tuned for the next week's episode.